Here to cover all things crime, history, and politics, we are at the desk. And welcome back to Season 5 of ATD. I'm your host, Lauren Perry, and in today's episode, we will be talking about protests in Minneapolis and Iran, Iranian PR, and the Idaho 4 murderers. Now, come take a seat with us at the desk.
Thanks, Lauren. In the last month, we have seen an increase of ICE and Border Patrol agents in Minneapolis, Minnesota, which has led to mass protests. Last week, a second death has occurred at the hands of a federal agent, resulting in President Trump relocating Border Patrol official Greg Bonivo, who has ran the immigration enforcement push in the city. We will also discuss mass protests against the regime in Iran, where activists say over 6,000 people have been killed. First, though, I would like to introduce a new member of the politics panel, Gracie Pavlovich. Sorry, Gracie. I'll start with you. What do you make of these protests in both Minneapolis and around the country?
Well, first, I want to say thank you so much for having me here. I'm so excited to be here, but we've got a lot to talk about, so let's start with everything that's happening in Minneapolis and all over the country. I just want to say what we're seeing right now is a serious threat to civil rights and democracy as we know it. And the American people have had enough, from the deaths of Alex Preddy and Renee Nicole Good, and the detaining of multiple children like 5-year-old Liam Ramos. And people are gathering in the streets. They're making their voices heard. They're holding this presidential administration accountable and checking that use of federal power. And even from cities to Davenport, Iowa, to Green Bay and Milwaukee, Wisconsin, to Salt Lake City, Utah, even downtown State College, in many of these cities having sub-zero temperatures with little to no notice, people are still coming out in droves to fight this administration and the masked agents patrolling the streets. And I think that's really powerful. And I also believe that although Trump's immigration policies haven't changed, the reduction of ICE agents from Minnesota proves that persistent, peaceful protests can win. I think that's really powerful.
Yeah, my heart does go out to the two families, both Renee Good's family and Mr. Peretti. With that being said, ICE is doing their job as it is labeled. Since 2003, their job is to get people that are here illegally out of the country. And it has gone too far, and there has been instances where it's just tragic. But at the same time, I'm not going to sit here and say that we should defund ICE, we should abolish ICE, that we should shut down the government so we don't fund the Department of Homeland Security. I think that is very dangerous rhetoric. And if we look at it, they seem to make it somewhat of a Donald Trump issue. But if you look at the facts are this has been going on since Obama. You saw it going on during Bush and Clinton. This is not new. And this is both parties using ICE. And it just seems to be that all of a sudden, once Donald Trump is in office, people seem to be protesting ICE before even these killings.
Well, in those prior administrations, there weren't American citizens getting shot in the street.
You could argue, you could say we're not seeing it on video. With that being said, with Obama, there's actually more people that died within a year with ICE than it was with Donald Trump.
Really?
Yes.
Do you have a number?
I believe it was 37. 37.
37? Interesting. I saw that in Minneapolis there have been 9 homicides so far. 6 of them have been from ICE agents. I wanted to go back to what Gracie was saying. A lot of people tend to clown on, or not clown, like make fun of protests, saying, what are you actually doing? This isn't accomplishing anything. It worked. They're moving Greg Bonivo away from the situation. I mean, they're sending in the border czar to take care of it instead. I don't know if that's going to end up being worse or not, but still, and there is a plan. Trump said today he would de-escalate. Whether that means removing thousands of troops like Tim Walz wants, or just getting a little more low-key with what they're doing. But it really is inspiring to see how the Minnesota community has really come together in the wake of this tragedy. And it really was a tragedy. I mean, the video was disturbing. I mean, this guy made no motion towards his gun, which he legally had. If you watch it, an ICE agent shoved a woman on the ground. He tries helping her up. He's just recording. He didn't touch the ICE agent. Instantly mace, brought down 6 guys around him. Before you know it, 6 shots ring out. He's dead. He wasn't interfering on an investigation or anything. He was just there. He was recording. And he was an ICU at the VA, an ICU nurse. It's tragic, really. And, you know, there's some question over whether Renee Good you can question whether she intended to hit an officer or not. I believe that was not the case. But this one, it's just really no question. This didn't need to happen. I mean, these guys are untrained. They're given guns and they're getting sent out to harass people in the streets. Something like this is bound to happen.
Afterwards, it was so inhumane. They didn't try to save him or check for his health. They counted his bullet wounds and laughed and banded together. And that is the problem with this new form of immigration handling. It's absolutely tragic, and it's like nothing before. Even so many people who have no business being deported or taken away or just being shipped off, just like 5-year-old Liam Ramos and his father, their immigration case was still pending. It's illegal to...
There are a lot of people trying to do it the right way that are getting picked up for doing so.
But if you're here already, you're already doing it the wrong way. And it's not, here's the thing, Obama has said it, Clinton has said it, Trump has made it. If you come to this country illegally, it is unfair. We can take, quoting Obama, take the compassion out of it for a second. There are people that are trying to do it the right way. And if you're jumping them in line because you come here illegally, that is equally as messed up. That's like coming to Penn State, you taking classes, getting to live in the dorms and reap the benefits of being a student, while other people are on the wait list waiting to come into school and doing it the right way. They've filled out their paperwork. It's just simply
how are
unfair.
they
These are
supposed
people
to do
who
it the
have
right
risked
way?
their lives traveling from South America to North America for a chance at a better life. And it takes years, sometimes a decade plus, to even get a chance in immigration court. People can't wait for that. They have kids. Of course, they enter the country illegally. We all know people who do things that are illegal. And while there's question over whether it's right or wrong or whatever, we need to show some humility or humanity towards these immigrants, because our country wasn't built on immigration. My ancestors came from Europe, your ancestors came from whatever, your ancestors came from, I'm assuming, came from wherever. We are a better country as a result of immigration.
I think immigration is
better.
Right. Immigration is a great thing. The problem is who comes in, and it's hard to justify. Okay, let's separate criminals from non-criminal immigrants if they're both under the category of illegal, because then you just get into a very wonky situation. I mean, even to Obama, we have certain obligations to force the laws that are in place, even if we think in many cases the results may be tragic. There are going to be stories that break our hearts. That is what we're seeing right now. But again,
We've never seen anything like this.
we have never seen anything like this because cameras and social media have not been at the forefront of ICE and these operations. To go even further, Jay Johnson, the former Department of Homeland Security in the Obama administration, was on Meet the Press 2 Sundays ago, and he mentioned that the videos are not showing the whole story. We've seen these 2 tragic events, which are horrible, and I will admit, and I think it is terrible, those are 2 one-off events in this instant.
They were 2 miles away from each other.
Okay, but at the same time, there are insane many people that are agitating ICE agents, that are obstructing justice, and you have the right to protest. That is fairly in the books, in the Constitution. What you do not get to do is obstruct justice, try to, people are beating, spray painting their cars, they're banishing their cars. You cannot protest in a church. There are certain places where you cannot do these things, and people have gone too far.
Alex Preddy did nothing wrong and he died.
I'm saying that is
You're
one
going to
case.
see with these untrained officers and how they just swarmed the streets. Did they really need 6 to 8 people to take down one guy?
And the people know what they saw.
Yeah,
they saw the footage, they saw the videos,
angles.
and that's why Trump's 35% is fading. Even a poll came out from Interactive Polls, and it said 20% of the people say that Alex Preddy's shooting was justified. That's not the typical 35 that we normally see. And even Sean Hannity said that ICE has gone too far in his show, which is crazy because he's...
Even people on the right, even Republican leaders in Congress are saying this was not right. This cannot happen.
That cannot happen, 1,000%. But ICE in general is doing their job when we look at that. And they are, and
they're terrorizing people.
That is an instance in Minnesota. When you look at even Tim Walz was on last night on a radio show where he said when state and local communities, state and local police have cooperated with the federal agents, so ICE doesn't have to calm the protesters down and try to detain, and they don't have to go just searching all over the place when they have the warrants and they know where they are. If the state and local police help out in Louisiana, Kentucky, and Louisville, Kentucky, and Louisiana, ICE operations went well, and Tim Walz agreed with that with the president because of the cooperation.
The federal government is the one that cut off contact with the state of Minnesota in the first place. This breakdown in communication between the state and that state and the federal government is actually very, very interesting. I mean, they're rebuilding it now that Walz and Trump had a call, but it's hard to have sort of a work-together environment when your Homeland Security chief and Steve Miller are coming out and instantly lying, making up claims, saying Alex Preddy was there to massacre people. How do you work with like that?
No, that is true, but at the same time...
They're not working towards the truth, they're working towards a narrative.
But if we're going to hold people accountable, the law enforcement in this country kill over 1,000 people per year. Yeah. And it's a broken system, and I think that's what you're going to say, and I agree with that, but they kill over 1,000 people per year, law enforcement, police, and there was people, and they shouldn't be, but we're not running around saying every year that we should defund them or that we should abolish police and law enforcement because that's ridiculous, and it's the same thing with ICE.
This is barely law enforcement. ICE is... Even there was just a freelance journalist who applied to be an ICE agent. She went to this expo and they just took her. They didn't look up her record to see that every work she's published has been critical of ICE. And she said she didn't even fill out her paperwork, which could have said if she was, like if she had sexual abuse in her history or anything like that. And she didn't fill out anything, and they still took her, and they gave her a start date. So we don't even know who these agents are who are patrolling the streets and killing innocent people. Alex Preddy did nothing wrong. He had a water bottle and a phone in his hands. That was it. And he had a concealed carry permit.
Yeah, I mean, there's things that need to be done. They need to go back to, instead of the 47 to be symbolic of Trump, 47 days of training, it needs to go back to 3 months. Local and state should be working with ICE. That's what I truly believe. That makes these things go better. We don't have time to go to sanctuary cities, but that's a whole other story. And they should all be wearing body cams. And that's the end of the day, to make it as transparent as possible, because, you know, if we're going to talk about transparency and Trump says he does interviews every day, these ICE agents should also be wearing body cameras. So there's things that need to be done, but overall... They need to be
unmasked.
Unmasked. But again, then we can say that, but then people are hunting them down in the streets.
They're not wrong. Like Grace said, people don't see ICE agents as law enforcement, whether they are or not. They see them as a secret police force.
But that's because of rhetoric.
In a way they are. They cover their masks. We don't know who any of them are. Where do the Proud Boys go? They disappeared the second Trump won the election. Where are they now? They're working for ICE. All these militant groups are all going out working for ICE, and they're not getting vetted, and they're being sent out on the street to harass people. They're allowed to check people based off their skin color now, per the Supreme Court a couple of weeks ago, and they're doing just that. It's unethical.
Won't disagree with you on that.
If it was ethical, they probably wouldn't be wearing their masks.
Exactly.
Hiding themselves.
Well, unfortunately, that's all the time we had for today. Over the next few weeks, we will see how the Trump administration continues to handle its assault on sanctuary cities and see what kind of deal can be made with Iran in the face of these protests. Back to you, Lauren.
Thanks, Ryan. Now it's time to send it over to Max to tell us more about Iranian PR. Over to you, Max.
While we are likely familiar with many of the symbols that are popular in patriotic American life, it is less common that we consider those of other countries. Today, let's talk about Iran. Iran derives many of its popular present-day symbols from its own ancient past. Recently, one in particular has been making headlines, representations of the King of Kings, Shapur I. In November of 2025, the Tehran municipality unveiled a statue version of an ancient Shapur relief, which stands today as part of the Shapur I inscription. This inscription was created in the 3rd century CE by Shapur himself, featuring a detailed account of his battles and campaign conquests. It was written in Middle Persian, or Pahlavi, Ancient Greek, and Parthian, and it's located in today's Fars province in Iran. This inscription contains many of these battle accounts and often features his relation to the Roman Empire. Much of the battles took place between him and the Romans throughout their history together. It was usually going back and forth between a small section of land only about a few miles along in the 3rd century, which the Romans would conquer, then the Persians would conquer, back and forth, with nobody really making headway. The relief on the inscription itself features Shapur alongside the Roman Emperor Valerian and Philip I, who's also called Philip the Arab, with Valerian kneeling by his side, almost in supplication. After a loss in battle, Valerian was either killed or taken captive, which we don't really know which. Ultimately, stories of his death are either that he was simply used to work the mines for Shapur I, occasionally that he was used as a footstool, and finally an account of his death in which he poured gold down his throat and he died that way. However, there's actually no proof as to what happened. The unveiled statue that we saw is depicting this whole situation with Valerian kneeling as part of a PR campaign called "You Will Kneel Before Iran Again." It has thus far featured other ancient Iranian symbols, such as depictions of the ancient military uniforms, usually in lights shows, Shapur himself, and additional quotations from his inscription. Back to you, Lauren.
We are once again back at the desk. It's time to send it over to the crime panel to discuss Idaho 4 murderers. Over to you, Sam.
Thanks, Lauren. In the early hours of November 13th, 2022, 4 students were brutally stabbed in their off-campus home in Moscow, Idaho. 2 roommates survived, but tragically, Kaylee Gonzalez, Madison Mogan, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin lost their lives. After an extensive investigation, authorities arrested Brian Kohberger, a criminology graduate student who later pled guilty to 4 counts of first-degree murder and was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. We will never know what truly happened in the house that night, but more evidence continues to be released. And just recently, they released thousands of new crime scene photos, which we'll talk about after. But I want to throw it over to you to talk about kind of the timeline of this case, what happened, give us a brief overview.
Yeah, so it started off as a normal night. The roommates went out, came back, they ordered DoorDash, which arrived at approximately 4 a.m. Just after 4 a.m., the perpetrator, who we now know was Brian Kohberger, entered the house through a sliding kitchen door, and he went to the 3rd floor where he stabbed 2 of the roommates, Maddie Mogan and Kaylee Gonzalez. On the 2nd floor, roommate Xana Kernodle was still awake, and as Kohberger was coming down the stairs, he encountered her and then wound up killing her. He then killed Ethan Chapin, who was asleep in Xana's room. One of the roommates told police that they saw a man walking through the house dressed in all black with a ski mask. She froze and she locked herself in her room. At 4:30 a.m., the 2 surviving roommates began texting back and forth, and they were worried about why the other roommates weren't responding to their messages and their calls. Later in the morning, at around 11:30 a.m., they called 911 and requested help for an unconscious person, and when the police got there, they discovered the 4 bodies. After reviewing surveillance videos, police learned that a white Elantra was driving past the victim's house 3 times before the masked driver entered at around 4:04 a.m. And after further investigation, this car was connected to Brian Kohberger, whose phone was coincidentally turned off from 2:47 a.m. to 4:48 a.m. Before being shut off, his location was moving closer to Moscow, Idaho, and records revealed that he actually returned to the area at 9 a.m. the next morning. 3 days later, police recovered trash from Koberger's parents' house in PA, and a lab determined that the DNA found in the trash matched the DNA found on a knife sheath dropped next to the victims' bodies. 3 days later, he was charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of felony burglary. And following this, he pled guilty and was sentenced to 4 life sentences without the possibility of parole, in addition to 10 years for the burglary.
Wow, it's so intense.
Yes,
It is
a lot going on.
a lot going on.
Yes.
Yeah. You wanna?
Yeah, so thank you so much for that overview. And I kind of went back and looked at the new evidence that was just released from the autopsy reports that just came out. Obviously, this is a very graphic case, so very, very graphic stuff is kind of a trigger warning. A lot of stuff that I'm going to talk about is really intense, and I won't go into too much graphic detail. But between the 4 victims, they were stabbed a total of 150 times. And as you said, it was with a Ka bar knife sheath that was found in the house was the suspected weapon. Everything in here, I mean, it's just terrible. Death from blunt force trauma to the head, asphyxial injuries, stab and incise wounds on the scalp, face, neck, and chest, injuries to teeth and tongue, hemorrhaging in a chest cavity, brain bleeding, nasal fracture. I mean, you have punctured skull, you have broken bones. I mean, you have like throats cut, you have stab wounds everywhere on the arms, on the legs, on the torso, and the back. I mean, everything that I have read, perforations to the jugular vein, heart, lungs, I mean, through to the pulmonary arteries. I mean, everything on this was just truly shocking to read about. And unfortunately, all of these very intense injuries were consistent for every single victim. So it really does seem like he went in with a plan of attack and kind of executed the same amount of violence, the same type of violence on all 4 victims.
And something I read and I thought was really interesting is people are believing that he could not physically continue. I mean, doing all of that, I mean, there was evidence that on a chair that had blood over it. Some people speculate that he sat down in a chair, took a break. A lot of this took a lot of effort from Bryan Kohberger, especially Ethan. I mean, he was not a small guy. He was, you know, big. I mean, we don't know if he woke up. He was found in the bed. We don't know. They were drunk. But all of this took a lot of effort to be carried out by someone like Bryan Kohberger. And I know social media is kind of on storm with this right now. And as new evidence comes out, people are really curious. Do you want to go into that?
I mean, this case completely blew up. I think there was a period of time where you couldn't open any social media without scrolling past something to do with this case. And I think one of the reasons was it was so shocking and scary. The murders were seemingly random and so insanely brutal. And there was no clear motive for the longest time. People had so many theories, you know, all over social media. And I think something else that really caught people off guard was it could have happened to anyone. You know, these are young adults living in a house together, so a group of them, and it's co-gender, you know? And there was also a lot of no information for the longest time. So the period between the murders and Kohberger's arrest, which was about 6 weeks, police released little to no information. So this gave social media so much room to speculate. You know, there's a ton of true crime talk shows like ourselves that had endless theories. Especially TikTok and Reddit, they had so many hashtags like #IdahoMurders with millions and millions of posts. Now, this was both good and bad. It was a double-edged sword. So it did in part help investigations, but it also ended up hurting investigations. It was good because it kept it in the press. It kept it mainstream. It kept people talking about it, and it kept it not just on local news, but it kept making headlines. However, because of the lack of early on information and the theories, you know, innocent people were blamed, wrong theories were formed, misinformation were spread, and at the time, police ended up having to respond to some of these incorrect theories, just completely debunking them. It even affected the legal strategy. You know, the defense attorney cited massive social media exposure as a reason the suspect might not get a fair jury.
Yeah, and my heart goes out to the 2 surviving roommates. I mean, they got blamed so much. People are saying you know, four people in your house were brutally stabbed and murdered, and you didn't know what was going on. They were texting throughout the night.
Yes.
I mean, that is all kind of true, but I was actually having this discussion with my roommates the other night, and I said to them, I said, if I heard something, I would not come out of my room. I said, I love you all so much, but if I hear blood-curdling screams, I'm sitting in my bed. Like, let me be for real. Like, I don't know. For my opinion, blaming the roommates for
They should not be
something,
blamed.
They should
That
not
is
be blamed. They
inappropriate.
should not be blamed. It
Absolutely.
is inappropriate. You don't know how you're going to handle that situation
No.
until you're in it.
Yes.
And I mean, the fact that their names have been dragged through the mud so many times after people are posting on social media, I don't know how this roommate is smiling right now. She's in a picture with friends. How is she smiling?
Goodness.
She needs to move on with her life after something really traumatic happened. And as you were talking about before, this could have been anybody.
Yes.
You know, if one roommate came out of her room, she could have been attacked also. So it is so traumatic, and I think that is something that social media kind of took by storm in a negative way.
Yes.
And I think it's fight or flight. Like, your body literally shuts down. Like, you can be paralyzed with fear.
Right.
You know, so it's not their fault.
Imagine being the roommate who walks out of the room and sees Brian Koberger like dressed in black with a ski mask. Like, she just froze.
I
you
saw
have to
that.
have, like, empathy, because you don't know what you would do in that situation.
I read that literally she didn't just see him, they made direct eye contact. Like, they were completely face to face. And I mean, listen, another part kind of with social media, I hate to say it, however, it could be a possibility with hookup culture that is prevalent with young adults. I mean, you know, obviously there is a respect, your roommates are sharing a house, but at the same time, if your roommate has some random guy or girl or person over in the middle of the night, and you know someone leaves at like 4 a.m, unfortunately, like, that's your roommate's business. You know, that's their own room, their own private space. And again, with the prevalence of hookup culture in our society, I mean, literally, I'm assuming that, you know, Dylan probably thought it was just another man or woman or a friend or something leaving. I mean, how would you have any idea unless if you stopped to say, hi, who are you? What are you doing in my house at 4 a.m.? And realistically, I agree with Sam. If I'm in my PJs, if it's 4 a.m. and I'm coming back from the bathroom and I see someone, I'm gonna keep it moving.
Yeah,
That's the
keep
truth.
moving.
I'm sorry, but that is the truth. You're not going to sit there and you're not going to sit someone down for
Especially in a
20
mask.
questions. Someone in a
Wearing
mask, someone
black.
dressed in all black, clearly, you know, that is someone who does not want to be bothered. And, you know, like you said, it's a fight or flight situation. You don't know how you're going to react when you're in it. And then, I mean, worst case scenario, you freak out and you punch someone in the face and you punch your roommate Sneaky Link in the face. I mean, it's a possibility. It is a possibility.
And I also want to talk about kind of with that, the motive that Brian Koberger supposedly had. I mean, he was going after Maddie, which is what they speculate, you know. He searched her up on his phone. It was kind of a fixation that he kind of had of her. Now, personally, the law enforcement believes that he was entering that house. He went straight to Maddie's room and to do something to her, whether it be kill her, whether it be rape her. We don't know kind of what the motive was, but Kaylee was sleeping in that bed, and that is how that first started. So we don't know if he was kind of going in there expecting it to be as intense as it really was. I mean, it doesn't make it right, but I think that motive is also interesting. I also want to talk about how he's a criminology student. I think that is so interesting. He learns all about this. He has a deep, twisted mind. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I actually think it's interesting. I saw online that he actually applied for an internship with his local police department just earlier that year, and he wrote in his application essay that he was eager to collect and analyze technological data. Whatever that means.
That's
yeah, but it just makes
That's
it so
horrific.
eerie.
Horrifying.
It's just so eerie to just read and learn about, knowing what he would soon commit just 6 months later. It's insane.
Yeah.
Well, I also want to bring up the fact that he was arrested in Pennsylvania at his parents' house.
Always PA.
Always
Something's
PA.
always happening here, and it's never anything good.
Right, and I think it's interesting. Do we think that his parents knew and were sheltering him, or do we think that they didn't know? I think they knew.
I think personally, as we have very clearly stated, you have to be a very sick and twisted individual who needs a lot of help in order to commit acts as heinous as these. I think on some level, I feel like, you know, if you're a parent, you give birth to your child, you know how they are. You maybe know if something's a little bit off. You maybe know if they're kind of missing a piece of something or if they struggle with something. I think that their parents maybe knew that their son was not completely right in the head, but obviously I don't think any parent truly thinks that their child can be capable of something like this.
Yeah, I don't think that they knew. For some reason, that's what my gut tells me.
You don't think they knew at all?
I don't think they knew that he killed them.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
Sam, what do you think? You're our resident criminology expert. So what do you think,
If
Sam?
I'm being honest, I don't know.
Okay.
Because I don't know. Because I think they knew he was a bit off, probably could sense that he was acting a little bit weird. But what parent thinks that their child killed for people so brutally?
They can't admit it to
agree.
themselves.
They knew that he
You
was off.
think that they knew he was gonna go do something and then they took their child back in and they were like hiding it?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think that.
I don't think
Maybe.
their parents, they have other kids. You know, Brian Koberger's siblings have been spoken out. Also, before we end this, I want to note that Kaylee Gonzalez's family has spoken out about the release of this photos. They says it's an intrusion of privacy.
The crime scene
all
photos,
of that,
yes.
The crime scene photos. Her sister has spoken out. So it is a big family ordeal, and it still continues to affect the lives of so many, especially on social media and in college. It is scary to, think about that this stuff happens, especially in college. But unfortunately, that is all the time we have for today. The Idaho 4 murders was a case that shocked a community and left an unforgettable mark on the world. While justice has been served, the impact of that night will still be felt for years to come. Back to you, Lauren.
Thanks, Sam. Sadly, that is all the time we have for today. In the meantime, stay updated with ATD on all of our socials at PSU at the desk, and let us know what you want to see us cover next. I'm Lauren Perry, and we will see you back at the desk next week.